This is We Bleed Orange and Black, the podcast for Halloween and horror lovers. Join us as we interview creators, discuss our favorite folklore, and share original spooky stories. I'm Jeff C. Carter. This week, we're talking with Allie Russell and Kathleen Palm about middle grade horror. Allie Russell is the author of the middle grade horror book It Came from the Trees and The Book of Outcasts, the official guide to Nevermore Academy for the Netflix show Wednesday. She hails from Pittsburgh, ground zero for the zombie apocalypse, where she grew up on a steady diet of Halloween parties, horror films, unsolved mysteries, and Goosebumps books. She lives with her husband and her two black cats, Knox and Fury. Kathleen Palm wanted to be a ballerina, but dancing was hard. Then, a marine biologist, but science was hard. But in the end, she became a writer, which is hard, but she doesn't care. She loves scary movies, TV shows, books, watching people play horror video games on YouTube, and chocolate milk. She lives in a big old, sadly not haunted house in rural Indiana with her husband, 2 kids, 2 dogs, and 4 cats. Allie, welcome back.
Thanks for having me.
Kathy, welcome to the show.
Well, thank you. I'm so happy to be here.
All right, how did you two meet?
Well,
I read her book and stalked her.
I was going to point to Spooktastic because that's the I remember you from social media, but like sometimes it's hard to like put faces with names with those little tiny icon profile photos. So my fondest and like first memories of actually meeting you are at Spooktastic, which was wonderful, and it was so nice to meet you in person.
Yeah. Well, I saw a post on something about It Came from the Trees, and I immediately went, I have to have that book. And then I read it and immediately went, well, I have to be her friend. And then I found out you were at Spooktastic and immediately ran down to find you.
And we've been friends ever since, Jeff.
Yeah.
I don't know. After I read Came from the Trees, I was like, I don't want to hang out with Allie. I don't want to go camping with her.
You do, and we're going to stop at Del Taco along the way.
Of course. I don't want to be in any tent where someone is eating Del Taco. Sorry. So today we're going to have a nice small panel discussion about middle grade horror. I want to cover the basics because I feel like there's certain boxes we got to check for it to be a discussion about middle grade horror. But I also want to make sure that we don't just get sucked into the black hole of like, what's the age range and what's appropriate and inappropriate? Like, there's a bunch of questions you have to talk about every time we talk about middle grade horror. But I'd also like to open it up and get a little more free range and theoretical with it. So who wants to take this one? Define the age range and genre of middle grade horror.
I can talk about it. So middle grade horror is typically for readers, young readers in the 8 to 12 age range. You say genre, but really middle grade can be it can cover any genre. So, you know, fantasy, sci-fi, realistic fiction, horror. Horror is very popular among young readers today, but that's typically it. And, you know, it's a wide range, you know, ages 8 to 12. What scares an 8-year-old is not going to scare a 12-year-old necessarily. And you always have to think about the fact that kids tend to read up. So like, yes, you're writing for like kids in that age range, but somebody just told me that a 7-year-old is reading Mystery James Digs Her Own Grave. And I was like, oh, wow. So we'll see how that goes. But yeah, you always have to think about the fact that kids are reading up. So keep that in mind. But yeah, you're writing for a wide range of children. I always aim to hit kids in that like 10 plus age range because I feel like the younger end of middle grade is covered very well. Like there are tons of books for kids at that part of the spectrum, but I feel like, and librarians have talked about this, there's a big gap in fiction for kids ages like 10 to even like 13-ish. So they're calling it young teen lit that is needed, upper middle grade that's needed, but 8 to 12 is the solid number.
That was very smooth, well rehearsed. Kathy, why horror for kids?
Because there are a lot of horrors out there that kids face. And I think books are a great place to be able to deal with some of those things, from just bullies to abuse to death to anxiety to depression to fear of the unknown, fear of the future. There's so many kids thinking about so many of these things, and horror is just the perfect place to come share an adventure with a character that's either dealing with something similar or something that they've never thought of but kind of would like to think of. And I think kids ask all sorts of questions. I think they want to know about some of these things. And I think giving them a place to go where they can read about it, experience it, shut the book if they have to and step away for a minute, talk to other people about it is a really great thing to do because the world is scary when you're a kid.
I was just watching an episode of Erie, Indiana. I was doing my research because we covered it on the show. I was like, this is a pretty intense episode and it's really well written. And I saw that the writer was saying that they consulted with a child psychologist to make sure that they had calibrated the intensity and the horror. And once they did that, then they were free to tackle bigger, more weighty issues that your average kid show wouldn't touch. I don't know if either of you have therapy backgrounds. Kathy, you charge a bunch of really intense topics head on. Allie, you grapple with all sorts of real world things that are often in the background of stories and not explored. At least I haven't seen them explored in children's books. How do you gauge what is appropriate? Is this something you rely on a specifically trained middle grade editor for in order to sort of take the temperature of these books?
It depends on the editor. I've heard from some authors that, their editors are like, you might need to tone it down. And I've definitely worked with editors like that. But I don't know what to call her, my main editor, I guess, Allie, her name's also Allie. She was one of those kids who read scary stories on the playground. And so she's very much like, you can go scarier. I think this is good. Because I had those fears with Mystery James, like a lot of the occult elements in the book, grave digging, mortuary science. Those are like pretty dark topics for kids that age. But it's also the age at which I became interested in that kind of stuff. So I feel like it's okay. But like, I think it just depends on the editor. There's no like set list like at least that I'm aware of, that you can't write about this or that. Like, I think the lens is what matters, like how you're viewing it, because like Kathy was talking about, like kids have to deal with some really dark stuff, some stuff that they're afraid of. The fears won't always be the same. I'm thinking about, when I was a kid, like the things that I am afraid of or the things that I was afraid of
Quicksand.
Are not the same as quicksand. Yeah, we thought that was going to be a big one, huh? But like the things that like kids are afraid of today are different. So like, social media, AI, ICE agents running, like all of these like fears that kids are dealing with today that I maybe necessarily didn't deal with, back in the 90s. But there are other fears that I think are just universal to childhood, things like anxiety, like what Kathy talked about. Like one of my biggest fears as a kid was that something was going to happen to my parents and my sisters and I were going to get split up. Like that's a fear that carried with me through all of childhood. So like that's a pretty like dark topic to write about. And I think the lens is what's more important. So like writing through that lens of like being 8 to 12 versus saying like, oh, well, you can't write about, I just read a middle grade book about a serial killer. You can't write about serial killers. Like that's a real thing. I've come across at least 3 books about middle grade books that have serial killers in them. And that seems like it might be taking it a step too far, but I've talked to you about this before, Jeff. I've talked about this on several podcasts, but there was a school library journal from librarians and they were talking about how kids are coming in and saying, oh, I watched Dahmer because I can't find anything scary enough for me. So like, I think it seems like, oh, well, you shouldn't talk about those things. But the reality is that the world is very big. The world can be very scary. And it's my belief that it's probably safer for kids to experience those fears through a book, right? Rather than going out at first hand, experience through a book rather than going out and experiencing it, in person for the first time. I just did a school event in October. And the question that I was asked was, have you seen Terrifier? Is that your favorite? And these were, kids ages like 10 to 12. So
yeah, I fucking hate that kids today are like watching Texas Chainsaw Massacre and stuff at like age 6. I know that's just the way it goes. And I know that to be a horror fan is to seek and push boundaries, but it used to be harder to lay your hands on a VHS tape and then get some time with the VCR when your parents weren't around and sneak it at, oh, my older brother got this at a sleepover or whatever. And now it's just like infinite hardcore horror streaming on the internet. And they're also trying to sell you Funko Pops of Chucky. And Chucky is not appropriate for kids. I'm sorry. He's trying to kill a kid in the first movie. Like that's his whole goal. And then later he wants to like possess the bodies of kids. But I realize I'm an old fuddy-duddy. Kathy, how do you determine how scary to go and how raw to go? Because I think those are sort of two separate parallel tracks that you explore.
I think there's a level of just honesty about some things in the world. Into the Gray, Ember's mama is depressed. And I think kids need to see that adults struggle too. I think because growing up, I thought I'd hit an age where I knew everything and everything was fine. And I never hit that age. And I am now 53 years old and I still don't have a clue. I think being as honest as you can about some of these scary things is a really good thing for kids to really, instead of saying, oh no, you're too young, or oh no, that's fine, you don't need to think about that now. Honestly, just talking about a lot of these things would help a ton. I grew up in the 80s. We were scared of the communists coming to take over the world, but I couldn't watch everything I wanted all the time. And I honestly didn't know most of it was out there because I didn't have a way to find out. Scary wise, see, kids are people, just like adults, right? You get some kids that can handle really scary stuff. You get some kids who can't. And as long as they know what they can and cannot handle, you just kind of let them figure it out. I think I feel like you can let them figure it out. I know my daughter likes to tell me I watched some things that scarred her forever, but she now watches horror and she says, it's okay, Mom, it's okay. And I'm like, well, I watch stuff that scarred me forever too. My editors didn't ask me to up anything or take anything back about anything. They've kind of let me go. When book 2, Within the Black, gets a little dark with grief, and nobody said anything. So I think letting kids explore some of this in a space of honesty about it can really let them figure out what they can and cannot handle, and then let them go forward with that knowledge to then open up later what they will and will not want. I mean, watching some of these gory movies, have we become desensitized? Probably. I enjoyed Terrifier, but I don't think I want a 6-year-old watching it. But I don't know. I think there's so much range and so many things that you can do. I really hate to tell people they can't do things for middle grade just because there's probably kids out there who will enjoy it.
You have mentioned in the past, Allie, that kids are good at self-censoring. They can close the book and walk away at any point if it gets too scary. But we've also talked about how when you're working in middle grade, your audience is not the kids. Your first audience is the parents. Those are the ones you were sort of marketing to, and those are the ones that you have to win over. And then as another layer of filtering, there's also the librarians. You want to court the librarians because they're the ones who are meeting the kids where they're at and finding out what they want, the type of things they like. Is it just that writers are set free to write about whatever they want, but then between editors, librarians, and parents, like every book is kind of filtered 3 times before it gets into a child's hands?
I think we're talking about 2 different things. So when I'm writing middle grade fiction, I am never thinking about what the adults would approve of or want to read, or like I'm putting myself in like that young middle grade frame of mind, and I am writing for like the kid in me, the kids who are, reading at this point in time, at this moment. Where we start talking about adults, for me, it's like the marketing, it's the business of publishing and books. So like I have to I can't market my books as if I'm speaking directly to young readers, because I'm not. Like 9 times out of 10, I am talking to parents and librarians. And horror, I think, it's one of the very few genres where you do have this kind of oversight, because no other genres really get this. Like you get fantasy and realistic fiction, and nothing gets scrutinized quite the way that like horror does. And I think that's a little bit unfair, but yeah, I think there are 2 different things for me. So like, I just wanted to be very clear about that. Like I'm never writing with adults in mind. I'm always writing with like the kiddos in mind. I'm sorry, I shouldn't call them kiddos. I don't think they like that. The young readers in mind. But like, when it comes to like talking about my book, the themes, the marketing, the characters, the setting, all of that stuff, I am like specifically talking to adults because I have to, like, to get them on board first so that they will, put my book. And then, once books hit libraries, for the most part, like if you're a kid like me, like my parents, they pretty much let me read a lot of things because of like the self-censoring thing. Like I was mostly just reading horror, and like you said, would close the book when it was too much. So I don't know. I know that like book banning is like a big issue right now. And I just experienced some soft censorship with one of the books that I think is my least scariest, which is Down Came the Spiders. I wouldn't have expected that, but it happens. So I think at that point, there's nothing that you can write perfectly or say or do that would make the people who want to ban that or exercise soft censorship change their minds about it.
I think it's the word horror. You say horror and people immediately just cringe and shrink and go, no, that's not for me. And they don't understand what horror is, the different types. It's just so much that they don't get until you say horror, and immediately they're like, nope. So how do we have to market it? It's creepy middle grade. It's spooky middle grade. We can't, horror just makes everybody just run away. And it's not a bad word, and we just stop with that.
When you get out the little sticker that says horror, it's like an online chat room. It immediately defaults to whatever the most extreme position or content is.
Yeah.
I could be talking to someone about Erie, Indiana, which was a really cool sci-fi moody show that was age appropriate and just got eerie in the title. It's not like Murderville. It's eerie. It's like a little bit spooky, creepy. But if I put it on the horror shelf, people are going to think, oh, well, that's basically the same as Terrifier or Texas Chainsaw Massacre or Martyrs. French extreme horror and torture porn. Yeah, maybe there does need to be other shelves that are like the spooky shelf, the ooky shelf, the creepy shelf.
I mean, there kind of are, though, because like when we're talking about horror, in my mind, horror is not like a top genre. It is one of the like umbrella spokes of speculative fiction.
But as Kathy said, no other genre, high-level categorization or umbrella term is appropriate or even custom-made to tackle things like grief and anxiety and depression and loss and fear of loss, tragedies, things like that. Horror is the bucket that all of these childhood fears and traumas belong in. So what are some of the challenges and rewards of working in middle grade horror?
The challenge is getting it to the kids. I'm with a small press. My books don't get on shelves in libraries or bookstores. I am struggling to get it to kids. And that's a me problem, and that's a my publisher problem. And I'm trying to talk to people and figure out how to work this a little better. That's my main challenge with that. Writing it is super fun. I enjoy all of that. It's getting it to the kids, to readers. That's where I find my challenge.
Challenge for me, honestly, sometimes same, Kathy. Like I, like even like a big publisher, like it's still. I've been talking about book banning in Texas right now. Like there are laws that are preventing new books from being put on shelves in front of kids because they have to be read by a committee. Rachel Reeves. She is like doing fantastic coverage of this. She's a librarian, a middle school librarian. But, there are laws preventing those books from being put on shelves until they're read by a committee. The committees are not up to speed necessarily on like what the kids are reading. Like I don't know what the requirements are, but like it's really like halted some authors' ability to get those books in front of kids, like new books in front of kids. So it's still a challenge, even when you're with a bigger publisher or traditionally published. It's still a problem right now with books being pulled off of library shelves. In some instances, books are being pulled off library shelves just because they have Black and brown characters on the cover, or because, they contain LGBTQ plus themes. So like, I think some of that is like we're facing a lot of the same struggles because of the culture around books right now. It's just very like fraught. So that is still a challenge, I would say, for my books too.
I was really surprised when you mentioned that Down Came the Spiders was getting pushback, because that is definitely the gentlest of your books. Your other books are so much more hardcore.
Yeah, it's and it's what we call soft censorship. Like no, there's no one out in front of a school, burning copies of Down Came the Spiders or anything like that. But we're just going to pull this off the shelf because somebody might complain about it. There hasn't even been a complaint yet. It's just somebody might complain about it. So the book banning, I think, is a real challenge for all authors right now. And it's unfortunate. It's unfortunate. But this has always been a problem, especially with horror. You go back as far as like Goosebumps and Scary Stories to Tell in the Dark, and those books were, getting banned back in the day too.
Kathy, when did you start writing middle grade horror? What were some of your influences?
Well, I started writing YA fantasy. Help me. Because I read a lot of fantasy as a teenager. I think the only reason why I really read it is I really liked the evil wizards and dragons. Like, I liked the weird stuff. But that is where I found it, because like I grew up in the 80s. There wasn't a lot of middle grade horror. I mean, I have John Bellairs' The Spell of the Sorcerer's Skull. A Wrinkle in Time I thought was super scary, that I loved. And those two, I still have those books from when I was a kid because they were ones that I really liked, but I couldn't really find a lot of it. So fantasy is where I went until my dad handed me Stephen King when I was like 16, and then it was all over. So, but I didn't think I could write horror because cool people wrote that and I was not. And so I started fantasy. But as I wrote, it got darker and darker and darker. and suddenly I thought, oh, I'm writing horror now. And then I looked at the YA part and I thought, I'm not enjoying the YA part of this as much. The themes for YA I didn't enjoy them. And I started reading middle grade and thought, this I love. I loved middle grade. I loved the family, the friends aspects, the adventure aspect. And for a person who's still, a kid inside fighting monsters from when, the trauma of the past, this was good stuff. So my first middle grade horror book was Into the Gray that I wrote.
Oh, wow. Allie, how about yourself? When did you start with middle grade? Did you play around with other age ranges?
Yeah, I think I've been writing since I was a kid, and I've always written horror. And I think as a kid, I was just writing, and it probably came across as like me trying to like write for adults because when you're that age, you feel like Kathy said, like, everything. Nobody can tell you anything. You are an adult. You're just trapped in a kid's body. So like as a kid, it probably didn't read as like middle grade horror, but as an adult, I like focused almost exclusively on middle grade horror. And I started writing for real, like when I was in my probably like mid 20s. Specifically like for middle grade, I started writing in my mid 20s, but then I took a really, really, really long break and like take it seriously again until 2020. That's when I started like writing again for that age range.
How has middle grade changed? As long as it's been on your radar, have you seen it changed? Kathy, you were saying like it just didn't even exist in the 80s. Obviously, going from 0 to 1 is a very big change from a non-existent to existent. Has it evolved since then?
I think it's becoming more honest. I think it's becoming more putting this strange horror skew on reality. I think it's really looking at reality now and a kid's reality now more than it has. I think, Goosebumps, like I was too old for Goosebumps when Goosebumps came out, but of course I've read some of them now, and they're fun and they're creepy. But now you get some of these middle grade books it delves into some really dark places, and it's just really a real good view of reality and what is out there that we deal with every day, past trauma, fear of the future, all these things. I think it's just become more honest.
Allie, and you were on the publishing side for a while too, right?
Yeah. I think it swings back and forth. Like it's like a pendulum. Like you'll see certain things at one time and then they'll go away for a little while because that's not what's being marketed or published or consumed. And then you'll hit the other side, and then it's like, oh, remember we used to do that, and then the pendulum swings back the other way, and you're right back to things that we were doing 3-5 years ago. I guess one of them could be like length of books, like the new thing that everybody's leaning toward. Librarians are saying it, teachers are saying it, like we need shorter books for kids, and that wasn't always the case. Like sometimes you had like some real chunkers because of other popular children's books that were out at the time, and everybody was trying to compete. So now we've moved off to the side a little bit where we need to like be writing shorter books, and that's tough for some writers right now. Like even Mystery James Digs Her Own Grave, I was really trying to get that book to be pretty short, and it just didn't happen. But the story requires as many pages as it requires, and Spiders is a whole different thing where it's like you stack them up against each other and the sizing is different. So like that's one of the things. It could be themes. At one point, like fantasy was more popular, but now over the last like few years, librarians are talking about like how popular horror is among young readers. So I think like they could eventually get sick of horror, and maybe they'll move to, I hope that they don't, because I really love writing it, but like they could move toward more realistic fiction. So I think it just depends on like what is going on in the world and what's happening. And so like the themes, the length, and even now, Jeff Kinney's Diary of a Wimpy Kid, I've seen a lot of requests for more illustrated fiction for that age range, because kids, graphic novels are a huge thing right now. Kids really want like the visual medium to go along with like the written text. And that's great. I think it's great that, like it changes based on like the desires of the kids. So if anybody, Kathleen, I don't know, your next book, maybe you could like, you want to do something illustrated. That's what the kids are looking for.
I actually have one that would do really well illustrated, but I would want to illustrate it though. I have an art degree. I could do, like, I wanted to be an illustrator.
Oh.
I ended up with too many voices in my head and I had to write them down. But yeah, I have one that's very visual.
Yeah, so that's exactly what the market is like clamoring for right now.
So we've touched on the genre going from non-existent to existent. There seems to be a pendulum of trends that recur. We've talked about where it's going. Books are getting a little bit shorter. People want scary. They want illustrated. Kathy, you'd said that middle grade is getting more honest in the subjects that it's confronting. Where do you guys hope the genre will go? If you had a magic wand and it could only be applied to the trends in middle grade fiction.
I hope we keep pushing the boundaries of what this category can be. I think looking at kids' books as these simple little things that are just fun, I think we're starting to really stop doing that. I think we're starting to look at these books and go, okay, there's something to these. And I think, and because we've kept pushing to, I don't know, be more honest, right? Talk about bigger things. I think we could keep doing that, but I do understand too, kids are going to eventually go, well, that's a lot. Can I just go fight zombies over here with this? Sure, you can go fight zombies. You can go fight monsters. You can do whatever you want. I think it's going to go all over the place, and let's just go for the ride.
Allie?
Kind of the same. I would like all fiction. This is not even exclusive just to children's fiction, but like I would like to see less fast fiction, what's very like popular in the moment. So we pump out a million of these. And then, if you're not writing in a specific genre or writing for a specific theme, then your book just gets, rejected. And everybody's trying to make money. Like that can be really frustrating as an author at times, where it's like, you've got this story, of your heart, and it doesn't matter how good it is, how well it's written, how well it's received, by your agent, your editors. It's still, that's not what's selling right now. So no, thank you. We're not interested. And that can be really, really tough, because I guarantee you there's a kid out there who needs that. So I would like it if like we could stop just catering to one type of reader and recognize that there are all kinds of readers. Like, yeah, there are some kids who don't like long books, but then there are some kids who want 4, 5, 6 book series, like they just want to keep reading. Like, I think all readers are different, and we publishing, the book world keeps trying to create a universal reader, and that's not a thing. That doesn't exist.
Kathy, you used to write YA fantasy. Have you found that writing for a middle grade audience is harder or easier or just different?
It's different. The themes are very different. I think for me, it's easier to write middle grade. Every time I write YA, everybody who'd read it go, well, where's the romance? Well, where's the whatever? And I don't do that. I dislike it. My brain doesn't go there. And so I would go, well, there isn't any. And they'd be like, but you have to. I'm like, well, one, no, I don't. But so going to middle grade felt very good to me. And I think I think the one thing about middle grade is you have to work very hard to not be any kind of preachy, any kind of lessons. We're not here to teach you things. We're here to tell a story and get you involved in this and a place where you can explore who you are and how you feel about things. YA is a lot of drama, which I disliked doing. So for me, middle grade is just a nicer exploring place without so much of the drama that goes with teenagers. Not that I don't like teenagers. Teenagers are great. But so I think for me, middle grade was a little easier, but mostly it's just different.
Allie, you said you grew up writing. Did it always sort of revolve around roughly middle grade experiences? Or have you found that as you've come back to the middle grade zone that it flows more easily? Or are there specific challenges, or is it just different?
I think it's harder for me for a reason that Kathy just talked about. Like, you do not want to write a book that is didactic and forces kids to feel like they're reading like a rule book or a playbook or, some sort of instructional manual. You have to try to reach them through the characters' actions. Characters cannot be perfect because people are not perfect. Kids, especially, like, your brain is still developing. So like something might seem very logical to you, as a 10-year-old, and as adults, we're like, well, that's just the silliest thing in the world. But it's not silly, when you are that age, because your brain is not fully developed and, you have different priorities. So I think that, like, for me, it is harder sometimes to step outside of my adult brain to reach kids in a way that doesn't feel like I'm reaching to them. Yeah, it's different, as Kathy said, but for me personally, like, it's harder to write. For example, like, I've had somebody ask me to write a picture book, and we've been talking about it for a couple years at this point, and I just can't do it. I just cannot do it because writing a picture book is incredibly hard. And Kathy talked about this earlier. Children's literature, it's not just fun and cute. Like, it can go really dark, it can go really deep. The writing is really beautiful, the stories are really beautiful, and we cannot, like, just look at kids' books and think like, oh, anybody can write a kids' book. You can't. And if you have that thinking, I'm sure that you probably did not write a very good kids' book.
You both brought up this idea of not writing anything preachy or didactic. When I write for adults, it never crosses my mind that I would be writing anything preachy or didactic. So is it a factor of you are an adult writing a story for a kid, your mind immediately shifts into a more parentalized mode, or you're just thinking about life lessons that a middle grade story should have some wisdom or some examples of people going through tough times? Is it because you as an adult wish you had had those life lessons spelled out to you when you were that age, and you're like, I gotta tell these kids it's okay, and then you're like, oh wait, it's getting preachy?
To me, it comes down to what I call the know betters. It is an adult thing, but you'll find the kids, the know better kids too, that we have more life experience. So therefore, we know exactly what you should do and how you should react. No, we don't. So it's the know betters. I am sharing my knowledge with you because I know better. But see, for me, I know I don't. So it's very it's very easy for me to not fall into the know betters. I understand that, it's an adult thing. We have more experience. We've lived these things. We've messed up, and we don't want you to mess up. But yeah, we do want you to mess up because that's the only way we're gonna learn or grow. So the know betters have been bothering me a lot lately, and I find them in books a lot where there's always an adult character who knows better, and it's usually the kids' parents, but there's other ones too that they just show up and the kids are just like, why? And I'm like, they're there trying to teach their lessons and give their wisdom, and the kids are just like, we don't care. And that is honestly what kids do every day. They don't want to listen to you tell them how to live their lives. They want to figure it out. So if we can just stop the no betters and we'll just let everybody figure it out, share your experiences. It's okay to tell the kid about this experience you had where you messed up. And then you can look at it. I did this to my kids all the time, and I'll just look at them and go, and now you can go mess up. Have a great time. So it is an adult thing. And I try very hard to not do that.
Did the no betters appear in book 3 of your series? Because they definitely sound like one of the characters.
No, actually, I tend not to write no betters. I don't like them. There's one, Darcy Marks wrote Grounded for All Eternity, and there's an angel. It's these kids from hell end up on Earth, and there's ghosts, and it's super fun. It's a great book. But there's an angel who comes down and knows better for all these poor kids in hell, and she's going to save them. And I messaged Darcy and I was like, oh my God, I love and I hate her so much. But this is such an adult thing, and this is what kids see and face all the time. There's always somebody telling them what they should do or how they should feel or what they should, always. And kids don't want to. As soon as they smell a lesson coming or a lecture, they're gonna run. They're out of there. But same with all the adults, right? We don't want to hear it either.
I love that you brought up Darcy's book, because Darcy, she's so amazing, and of course she would know that. Like, oh, I'm going to introduce this character that is a no better, and it's going to get on the kids' nerves. And like, yeah, I love that.
I loved it.
I think for me, it is wanting kids to know that it's going to be okay. Because as a kid, like, I very much felt like I struggle to this day with anxiety. And like, as a kid, everything made me anxious. Absolutely everything. Like, I don't remember a time in my childhood where my stomach wasn't hurting because I was nervous about something, and everything absolutely felt like the end of the world. Like, oh my God, you fell out of your chair and everybody laughed at you. It's the end of the world. Just don't even bother going to school tomorrow. That's it. And so I think I'm not trying to impart a lesson so much as say, like, this seems really bad. Like, you're stuck in a graveyard with a vampiric ghost right now, but like, it is going to be okay at some point. So I think that's what I'm trying to hit on when I'm writing.
You're empowering kids. You're letting them know they have the power to do what they need to do for themselves.
If you were to take a story like Dracula, do you think that Dracula could work as a kid's book and then a middle grade and then a young adult? Or do you think that middle grade is so specific that there are certain adult stories that just wouldn't work, or certain kid stories that wouldn't work for that middle grade segment?
It honestly depends on the content, the story, what it is. Dracula, there actually is a children's edition of it. Barnes and Noble and some other, there's another publisher, but Barnes and Noble editions are the ones I've seen the most. They do all the classics. They do Dracula, they do Frankenstein, and then we get YA adaptations of them, of all of these books, and also biographies. Like, I think Michelle Obama's biography has just been turned into like a children's book, and I've not like read like the adult version of any of these books versus the kids to like compare and contrast them. But I think I don't know how to answer. I can't say yes or no. I think it depends on what the story is.
You said there are multiple middle grade books about serial killers now. So it seems like all bets are off in terms of content. Kathy, do you think as you move the dial towards middle grade from kids up or adults down to middle grade, that we're just being more intentional about vocabulary? Or is it that, like, as you say, there are such ironclad expectations with YA that if you're going to tell Dracula for YA, okay, we got to focus on the romance, we got to focus on the drama. And then if we were to move the slider to middle grade, maybe we're going to explore other themes and turn the spotlight away from romance and drama.
I believe there's age appropriate ways to talk about everything, I think. And it does come down to themes of it. And as someone who is right now brainstorming how to write The Shining for middle grade, it can be done because I'm going to do it. And you just have to get down to like what Dracula, right? Maybe for middle grade, it becomes a story about control, right? As someone's trying to control you and get you to do things, middle grade will then come back with, no, I can have my own power and figure out how to face you and do what I need to do and not fall under your spell. So, right, whereas Dracula and YA, they'd all want the drama and the romance. So, for The Shining, it's a place that has trauma itself, and then a person coming in with trauma who is then dealing with theirs in this place. So I think if you boil things down to what they are, and you can find ways to fit it into like any category.
I also just wanted to say, like, yes, you're absolutely right. I love everything you said. And I think it goes back to like the lens, right? Like we were talking about, I'm telling you that there are a few middle grades out and coming out with serial killers, but like it's the lens. It's not like Texas Chainsaw Massacre level serial killer that you see. You're viewing it like through the kid's perspective. So we're not getting as much, blood. We're not going like deep into like the psychology of, why the person has done this, because sometimes the core of it is just like, well, some people are monsters, unfortunately. I think we are living that in real time right now. So I think the lens matters. And also when we're talking about like middle grade, like for middle grade, kids are very interested in like what is happening in their personal world, like not the greater world. And you get like the greater world when you're talking about like YA. So yeah, I love everything you said, Kathy. I agree.
That makes me want to talk about Down Came the Spiders, your new book, because there is so much emphasis and exploration of this small peer group. There's the friend group, and they all expect each other to behave and react a certain way. And then they get thrust into this situation where they're at a party with their whole class, and they can't segment themselves off into like, oh, it's just us three against the world. It's like, no, actually, there's popularity here. We are really concerned about how people perceive us, or we want to like act more mature than we are, or we think this person's going to chicken out because they always chicken out, or this person's a little know-it-all. And it's like all this, I don't want to say drama because it's not YA, but it's extremely relevant to that very vulnerable younger middle grade group. Can you talk more about that lens in Down Came the Spiders?
Yeah, Down Came the Spiders, the characters are in sixth grade. And so at that time in sixth grade, I remember when I was a kid, like that's when I was like starting to go to like dances, and like you did get some of that, like everybody's trying to find themselves. Everybody is trying to like, everybody's becoming the person that they are essentially, going to be. And so you do get very strong personalities, and sometimes like, your friends are paying attention to like the positive stuff. Sometimes they're paying attention to the negative stuff. So like all of these like, personality traits are like at war with each other. And I think with Down Came the Spiders, remember, I'm always trying to write for that 10 plus age range. And so with Down Came the Spiders, I really wanted to touch on some of those elements that you might be experiencing once you hit those like double digit. Your friends are starting to change, and everybody's, developing at like different rates, emotionally, mentally, like physically. Like some kids are growing, like shooting up and they're really tall all of a sudden. And, you might feel, oh, I'm still 5'2". I'm still 5'2". I've been 5'2" for like most of my life, but you know what I mean? Like you're getting all these like changes. And so I really wanted to like touch on that. So like I tried to write a book that would have a lot of appeal, for kids who like things like Goosebumps, where it's just like a fun, creepy spider story on Halloween night, while also touching on like very real themes that they are experiencing at that age range.
So, Kathy, in your books, Into the Gray and Within the Black, there's a lot of grief processing. There's a lot of talk of trauma, but I would also see that in adult horror of the last few years. There's been so much investigation and exploration of grief and trauma. What is the middle grade lens on those particular issues that are also extremely prevalent in adult fiction?
Grief horror has been quite a thing lately. I didn't know I was going to end up with a grief horror book until I realized what it was going to be. I think for kids, it's harder because you feel far away from that, right? The end of things, it's so far away, right? So to have a kid finally look, well, even Mystery James, right? All the said she sees dead bodies all the time. She deals with all that. That's a thing she sees, but a lot of kids, they don't. And so I think it's even harder because they really don't see it coming, I guess. So there's a lot of emotions with kids that they just really don't understand what's going on when they lose someone, and they don't know what to do about it. And everyone's telling them they're sorry, and everyone's telling them, you'll be okay, and we just will move on, but we have to remember, but we also need to do this, and you need to talk about it, and it's okay to cry, and it's overwhelming. I think for a kid, you just do not know what to do. And I think kids will have so many different reactions, and some of them will be able to kind of process it better, and some of them won't. So I think that there's so much for a kid to go through with this. So the grief process for them is going to be so different, even from each other. Like, you're going to have kids who read a middle grade book with grief and who have lost someone, who have then read this and go, that's not how I did this at all. But it's still a very real experience for somebody else. So, but whereas adults, we know it's coming. And so we kind of are a little bit prepared, but not really. But so we can use our adultness and get through things, whereas kids just don't know what to do.
You have kids. Did their age ranges overlap at all with your middle grade work? Did you ever use them as a test audience? Were you following them around like a primatologist, taking notes of all their weird gross habits? Have they read your stuff? Tell us everything.
My kids right now are 23 and 24. My son just bought a house and moved out last spring. My daughter's in her final semester of college. What's funny about Nowhere is when my daughter was, 9 or so, she came down the stairs and she was just completely upset. And I was like, what's wrong? And she goes, I can't find something. I don't even know what she was looking for. And I said, well, keep looking. It's got to be somewhere. It can't be nowhere. And she went trudging back upstairs, and seconds later came back downstairs. I can't find it. It's in nowhere. And that was the idea, the little spark that started all of this. So for Into the Gray, Ember's little words, she says, diddly darn, frickety dizzle, that came from my daughter's friends when they were 5th, 6th grade. So about that age. They had all these funny words that they said, and I asked permission to use them. They gave me permission, gave me a list of all these words. I chose some. I didn't use all of them. There were a lot. And so she was right in that age range as I was figuring out what to do with Into the Gray. She has read them. She does enjoy them. My son, he has all the books that I've written in a shelf in his house, but he has never read them. He's not a horror person. He doesn't much care for creepy stuff. He'd rather work on cars and tractors and weld metal. So teach their own. But yeah, the whole Nowhere thing came from my daughter.
Allie, the main character in your book, Down Came the Spiders, loves spiders. And I thought that was a really nice texture versus the standard bugs equals gross attitude that a lot of people, such as yourself, have. That's right, Allie. I'm calling you a hypocrite.
You know. When I was a kid, I was not afraid of bugs. I don't know when it became a thing, we used to play with snakes, ice pickup worms, used to catch lightning bugs and ladybugs. And now I don't know when it happened. That's one of the sucky things about becoming an adult, in addition to paying bills and taxes. You just suddenly sometimes become afraid of bugs, and you can't explain why. I will say I developed a healthy respect for spiders while writing this book. I believe all creatures, even if they have 10 to 20 legs, I'm talking about centipedes. I don't know how many legs they actually have.
There's a clue in the name.
100.
Centipedes, 100. Sometimes you see them and they don't, you can't tell. But yes, you're right. The clue is in the name. But they deserve to live. I don't believe in just squashing bugs just because like, oh, you're gross, you're ugly. It's my adult take on it is like, you stay up there in your corner, do what you're going to do, catch whatever bugs you're going to catch. If you're a centipede, you stay down in the basement, you fight off things. They're like little security guards, and I approach them as such. I just don't want them on me or too close to me, if that makes sense. And I wish I could help it. I really do. I wish I could help it, and I can't.
My theory is that, as we all know, you swallow spiders in your sleep, and those spiders inside of you don't want other spiders to get in. And so they go up into your brain and be like, ooh, spiders, stay away, so that they can have you all to themselves.
Yes, that is super true that we all swallow spiders.
It's science fact. It has been repeated often enough that I believe it. Because, of course, spiders would want to go into a mouth and get eaten.
They want...
All bugs want to be swallowed. Although... Yeah. Exactly. Man, they sure like it up my nose. I cannot tell you how many bugs have flown up my nose. And I'm like, dude, you see me coming, right?
We had, this is kind of related. We had cicada season here over the summer. One of my neighbors was like, Allie, I haven't seen you in weeks. And I'm like, it's because it's cicada season. They're just flying around everywhere. They're everywhere. And it's like, yeah, they're huge. It was like a 6-week period. And they are the ones where it's like you come out of this slumber and the first thing that you do is go bam into a car, bam into somebody. Like people were running or like jogging. And I'm like, how are you jogging? They're just flying right into you. How are you jogging outside? I stayed inside for 6 weeks because like they were knocking my door, trying to like fly at the garage. So like some bugs, it's just what they do. I don't know.
I gotta say, I heard you on our friend Scotty's podcast. You were from the high desert. You were really bigging up spiders. You were trying to be like their publicist. And I was like, I think Allie protests too much because like here, I live in a river valley. There's tons of cockroaches just because we live by a river. We also have big nasty wolf spiders. They are not controlling the cockroach population at all.
I think centipede, you need more centipedes because if I remember correctly, centipedes, they go hard against cockroach.
All right. Good to know. I will buy a bucket of centipedes from the pet store and just toss them into my garage. I bought one of those bug sucker guns. And so it has a long plastic tube. I can suck up a spider and then take it away from the house and then eject that spider.
Are you taking them from inside the house outside?
I'm taking the ones from outside the door further outside. However, I'm also going to push back on your claims about boohoo house spiders. They can't make it in the big bad world. First of all, these spiders came into the house, so they could turn around and go back out. Secondly, spiders did not evolve in houses. They'll figure it out.
But the spider, if you're taking it from inside, it might have been born in your attic. It might not know a single day, like a house cat. It might not know cats also were, outdoor creatures, and then they domesticated themselves.
Cats evolved in houses.
You're not
look at the pyramids. No matter how far back you go, cats were kept and pampered. You're a cat owner. Right. You know this, Allie.
I guess as long as you're not squashing the spiders,
no,
we're good.
But also
have to agree to this.
The thing about squashing spiders is like, then you have splattered spider all over the place. You have not improved your situation by smearing a bug against your wall.
No, it's because like baby ants and stink bugs, if you kill those and their pheromones, their scent stuff gets out, it attracts more. So don't kill them.
Kathy, can you tell us about the covers of your books? Who your illustrator or artist was?
The illustrator is Alexis Macaluso. My publisher found her and had used her for Robert Atone's The Triangle book. And so they wanted to bring her on to do the 3. And I went to her with my little sketches and designs and my little ideas and basically told her what was kind of important with the story. And she came back those within the black.
Allie, how about the cover for Down Came the Spiders?
The cover for Down Came the Spiders, it was illustrated by Jonathan McFerrin, and then Stephanie Yang did the cover design for Scholastic.
It's a great looking cover.
Jonathan did a great job.
Kathy, what projects are you working on next?
Well, book 3 for the Nowhere series comes out in August. So I've turned that manuscript in, so I'll wait for edits to come back for that. And while I'm waiting, I am brainstorming my Shining story for middle grade.
How about you, Ellie?
I am actually working on a non-horror related project, slight comedy. We'll see if I'm funny or not, but I'm working on it with a friend of mine who's an illustrator. I can't give too many details about that until I actually write it, but I'm having fun writing it, which I think is the important thing. And then I'm actually possibly going to move towards some nonfiction, middle grade, slightly spooky themed. And then the hardest thing that I'm working on right now is a YA babysitter horror.
Romance and drama. Let's bring it. Kathy, where can our listeners find you online?
Kathleen Palm, pretty much everywhere. I have kept it very easy.
Kathleen with a K.
Yes.
Allie?
I have a website. What's the name of my website? AllieRussellBooks.com. And then I'm mostly on Instagram at One Dark Alley, spelled ALLY.
Well, guys, thank you for hanging out and talking middle grade with us, and more specifically, talking about Down Came the Spiders, Into the Gray, and Within the Black.
Thanks for having us, Jeff.
Yes, thank you.
Thanks for listening. Please subscribe and follow. We're now on YouTube. Links are in the show notes. You can find me at jeffccarter.com and pick up my collection, We Bleed Orange and Black, 31 fun-sized tales for Halloween. Until next time, stay spooktacular. All right, guys, we solved it.
Yay! Horror for everyone.